Eala just broke a record that had been standing since 1997, not a record that was set last year, not a record that was set in her generation. A record from October 1997, 29 years ago. A record that survived 2 generations of professional tennis, survived the growth of the WTA into a global sport, survived every talented player that Southeast Asia has produced across 3 decades. And on August 24, 2026, Eala walked into the WTA rankings at world number 18 and made it disappear. She is now the highest-ranked Southeast Asian woman in the history of professional tennis. The previous record was world number 19. It was set first by Yayak Basuki of Indonesia, one of the greatest players her country has ever produced, a Wimbledon quarter-finalist, a player who spent more than a decade as a top 30 staple on the WTA Tour. Basuki reached number 19 on October 6, 1997. That mark stood for 5 years before Thailand's Tamarine Tanasugarn matched it in May 2002. Tanasugarn was herself exceptional, a Wimbledon quarter-finalist, a former top 15 doubles player, one of the defining players of Southeast Asian tennis for a generation. Together, Basuki and Tanasugarn shared that regional ceiling for more than 2 decades, and nobody in all of Southeast Asia could get past it. Until now. Eala did not just tie the record, she broke it. World number 18, 1 spot higher than what had been considered the ceiling for every player from every nation in one of the most tennis-rich regions in the world. She is 21 years old. She has been a professional player for a few years, and she has already reached a place that Basuki, Tanasugarn, and every player from the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, and every other nation in the region could not get to in the combined total of all their careers. Think about what it means to hold a regional record for 29 years. That is not a soft record. That is not a record that nobody tried to break. Southeast Asian tennis produced serious, dedicated, internationally competitive players during that entire span. Every generation had its best hope for surpassing Basuki's number. Every generation fell short. The record survived the entire career of every Philippine tennis player that came before Eala. It survived the 2000s boom in Asian tennis, when the WTA was actively courting talent from the region. It survived the 2000s boom in Asian tennis, when the WTA was actively courting talent from the region. It survived the 2000s, survived every development program, every promising junior, every player who climbed to the 40s or 50s of the WTA, and then could not break through the final wall. 29 years of Southeast Asian talent could not get past world number 19. That context is what makes Eala reaching number 18 so significant beyond just the number itself. She did not just climb 1 spot higher than a previous record. She proved that the record was not a hard ceiling, it was a challenge that had simply not yet found the right person. She was the right person. And she arrived there at 21, which means the question the sport is genuinely asking now is not whether she can hold number 18. It is how much further this goes before she stops. That sentence deserves its own paragraph. The highest-seeded Filipino in Grand Slam history. She is seated inside the top 32 at Flushing Meadows, which means she cannot face another seeded player until at least the 3rd round. She is protected, she has a path. She walks into the biggest hard-court Grand Slam of the year as a champion, as a top 20 player, and as a player that every other seeded competitor in the draw will have studied specifically because everyone has now seen what she does when she gets to the latter rounds of a major event. She entered 2026 ranked 53 in the world. That fact has been mentioned in every update this year, but it is worth stating again every single time because the distance from 53 to 18 is not a natural arc. It does not happen to people just because they are talented. Hundreds of talented players sit in the 40s and 50s of the WTA rankings year after year and never break through. The distance between 53 and top 20 is a wall that separates the players. The tour respects from the players, the tour fears. Most players spend years trying to climb it and never get over. Eala climbed it in 1 season. Not 1 year of gentle progress, 1 season of back-to-back results that forced the tennis world to recalibrate every assumption it had made about her ceiling. She won her first WTA 125 title in Birmingham. She reached the semifinals in Berlin and beat players ranked inside the top 10 doing it. She reached the 4th round at Wimbledon and beat Iga Swiatek, the former world number 1, one of the best players of this generation, in round 3. She went to Washington for the first time as an event and became the first Filipino WTA singles champion in history, beating Zheng Qinwen, Leylah Fernandez, Elina Svitolina, Naomi Osaka, and Jessica Pegula in consecutive matches. She hit world number 20 after that, then 18 before Cincinnati. And now, on August 24th, she owns a regional record that nobody in Southeast Asian tennis could touch for 29 years. Wimbledon 4th round, DC Open champion, highest-ranked Southeast Asian woman in history, seeded at the US Open. That is the 2026 season as it stands right now, and the US Open has not started yet. Now here is what the US Open seeding means in full context. She is seeded number 18. She just missed the top 16 cut by 2 spots. A top 16 seed would have meant maximum draw protection through the first 3 rounds, guaranteed separation from the other top seeds deep into the draw. At 18, she misses that specific protection. But being seeded at all changes everything about how her US Open begins. She cannot face Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, Coco Gauff, Jessica Pegula, or any other seeded player in the first 2 rounds. She gets to play herself into the tournament. She gets to find her rhythm, build her confidence, let her game rise to its peak before the match that really matters. And we have already established, repeatedly, in match after match this year, what happens when Eala is playing her best tennis at a Grand Slam. She is also, by this seeding, the highest-seeded Filipino singles player in the history of any Grand Slam tournament. That milestone sits alongside the Southeast Asian record as one of the headlines of this week. Every time she breaks one ceiling, she breaks 2. The US Open crowd in New York is going to be loud. The Filipino community in the New York area, one of the largest Filipino communities outside the Philippines, will be there. The atmosphere that followed her through Washington and Cincinnati, the packed stadiums and Philippine flags, the noise that tournament directors described as transforming the entire feel of their events, all of that arrives at Flushing Meadows with a player who now carries the weight of history and the confidence of a champion. Yayuk Basuki set her record in 1997, and it lasted 29 years. Tamarine Tanasugarn matched it in 2002, and it stood for 24. Both of them were extraordinary players who gave Southeast Asian tennis something to be proud of for decades. Both of them deserved every bit of the respect that regional record carries. Neither of them could have known how long it would last. Neither of them could have known who would eventually break it or how. They held the ceiling high as they could get it for as long as the sport would allow. And then, a 21-year-old from the Philippines arrived, climbed past their mark inside her first breakthrough season, and took the record somewhere it had never been. There is something worth saying here about what a regional record actually means beyond the number. When Basuki reached number 19 in 1997, every young tennis player in Southeast Asia had a target, a proof of concept, evidence that someone from this part of the world could reach the global top 20. It mattered for the generation that followed. Tanasugarn matching it in 2002 confirmed it was not a one-off. And now, Eala breaking it in 2026 does something bigger still. It shows that the ceiling was not 19. It was just 19 until now.